Now
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
6:06. Getting ahead of myself. Thought we were already hitting that 7 o'clock hour, Mercedes.
Time or something?
Yeah, I do. I get caught up in a whole Back to the Future situation. It's 6:07 now. See, I knew there was a 7 involved. This Thursday morning, coming up at 7:05, Deborah Tisler is running for Fairfax County School Board. At 7:35, Representative Mike Waltz of Florida on some national security issues and whether we're going to get a standalone bill asking for funding of Ukraine or if it's going to be wrapped up in hurricane funding. Clever how they do that, isn't it? 8:05, we're going to explore the beauty of yacht rock. And then at 8:35, Chef Andrew Gruel. Just don't give me that look on the yacht rock thing. You're going to love the yacht rock.
You're so bizarre. I don't know what's going on with you. Yacht rock. I mean, it's like you have to listen to this music on a yacht. Do you have a yacht?
No,
Larry,
no, that's the whole point. You
have a Tesla.
It's an attitude.
Tesla's not a yacht.
It's an attitude thing.
It's an attitude.
That's right.
Yacht rock.
It's
Sounds like
you close your eyes and you're
champagne.
on a yacht. No, it's about escaping from the reality of the world. You okay? Needed a little stretch there?
I need a little stretch.
All right. So the Anti-Defamation League, I remember, I think it was Abe Foxman was the long-time head of the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. This is an organization that was founded in the 1920s, I want to say, maybe 1919. Mm-hmm. The idea was to combat anti-Semitism. They saw at the time the rising tide of anti-Semitism, specifically in Europe, but even in this nation as well. And of course, we saw the horrific results of ignorant, despicable, hateful anti-Semitism in the Third Reich and the Hitler regime. And so that obviously bolstered the need for the ADL coming out of World War II. And they've been a stalwart warrior against what we know is anti-Semitism around the world and in this country. And it was never partisan. This is, again, you look for the things that we could agree on in this country, regardless of being a Republican or a Democrat, and combating anti-Semitism was one of those things. Well, then Mr. Foxman stepped down, and the new chairman of the ADL is a gentleman named Jonathan Greenblatt. His last job was as an advisor in the Obama White House. He was a highly partisan political operative.
That's right. And
he still is. And he has walked into the ADL, and it appears from now what we're learning from Elon Musk, because he has gone public, is that he basically approaches deep-pocketed corporations, and the only way to describe this is an Al Sharpton-like shakedown effort, where they say, listen, we think that you are responsible for anti-Semitism and the rising tide of anti-Semitism. We're going to go public, or you can partner up with us and we can help you, fix this problem. And here's what it'll cost you. And apparently, according to Elon Musk, they've done this with Meta and with Facebook organization, and they attempted to do it with X. And, he's been out there, this guy Greenblatt, saying, oh, there's so much hate speech now on Twitter because Elon Musk is in charge. And Elon Musk came forward and said, well, actually, no, I've got data showing that that's absolutely not true. What's really happening is this guy threatened me and told me that unless I partnered with the ADL, and of course, we know what they define as hate speech, people supporting Donald Trump, right? People supporting conservatives.
People who support border security, people who support the police, people who support making sure that girls can play girls' sports and keep, not have the biological men play there. Give me a break.
Thank you for pointing that out. The latest fight here is over the Libs of TikTok account, which, I was on the panel at CPAC last year with Chaya Rychek, who is an observant Jewish woman.
Yeah,
she's Orthodox. We had to schedule around her travel needs because she couldn't travel on Sabbath, okay?
Right.
And she is being accused by the ADL of hate speech because all she does is expose what these transgender radicals and these teachers are saying on TikTok. So this has nothing to do with anti-Semitism as the ADL was founded. They're actually equating Libs of TikTok, an Orthodox Jew, revealing what is being said on TikTok by liberals as being hate speech. Here's Greenblatt on CNBC yesterday. There's a little bit of what he had to say. He had quite a bit, actually, here.
Elon tweeted something I didn't know, that the advertising revenue's down 60%. But look, brands are big boys and girls. They will make their own decisions. I mean, let's be clear here. Like, this is the wealthiest man in the world running one of the most powerful media platforms on the planet. We're a nonprofit here in New York. So I think figuring out, like, who has the power in this relationship.
Wow. By the way, this guy with his wide necktie and the New York Wall Street shirt and the bald head, and you can hear the tone in the voice. Hey, you know what? This guy, he's the richest guy. We're just a little nonprofit here in New York, This nonprofit in New York with no power was able to lead a pressure campaign that got $60 billion out of Facebook.
Wow.
To so-called combat hate speech on that platform.
Hate speech, which is called, the wokeness campaign by the left, pushing a radicalized leftist agenda, trying to censor free speech. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. We're seeing anti-Semitism happening, around our college campuses. You're seeing it impact even, Jewish professors in
that's
these
right.
different places.
The pro-Palestinian activists, the Black Lives Matter activists who are seeped in anti-Semitic language and tropes. 100%. What about members of Congress, like the Squad?
Yes. Oh, exactly.
You hear nothing from Jonathan Greenblatt about them because they're Democrats. All right, so now listen to this exchange. Now, again, this is CNBC Squawk Box. The person interviewing Greenblatt here is named Andrew Ross Sorkin. Now, I could be wrong. Sounds like I'm pretty sure he's Jewish. Okay.
What?
Andrew Ross Sorkin, I believe, is Jewish. And that's only important in the context of what you hear here, because during the course of the interview, where this journalist Andrew Ross Sorkin at CNBC actually starts asking pointed questions, just hear how Greenblatt pivots and starts accusing him of anti-Semitic tropes. The journalist, listen.
You seeking,
7 days of the week.
Can I ask a question? Because I know this has been a critique of your organization and of many. Were you seeking to have some kind of either role at Twitter or any kind of donations made or other things?
No.
I only say that because there have been folks who've looked at these situations and felt that they were being shaken down.
Look, I think, let me be honest about that, right? I think it is sort of anti-Semitic trope to suggest when Jewish people express a degree of outrage over anti-Semitism, that somehow that's a shakedown because Jews are greedy. That sounds to me.
I'm not
saying you believe that.
I'm just saying that is the occasionally you hear the.
Did you hear that? He said, "Listen, it's been the accusation's been made, and without. By the way, he didn't answer the question.
Yeah.
He just said, so greedy Jews are trying to shake down these companies.
Yeah.
He did this with Adidas. He did this with the Brooklyn Nets. This is a track record that this guy has.
Look, you got to give the left credit here. These guys, think about what they did with Black Lives Matter. It was a scam. The whole thing was a scam.
Yep.
Yet you corporations got so scared because they didn't want to be called, quote unquote, racist. So they ended up giving, again, millions and millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter, which ended up as part of the homeowners association of buying, mega multi-million-dollar homes. In the case of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, their goal is to push and influence as much as they can these corporations by saying, look, give to us, and then we'll make sure that we stop anything that has to deal with conservative ideology.
Right, but that's exactly what it is, because who's the favorite target of the ADL for so-called anti-Semitic dog whistles? Fox News. Fox News hosts Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson back when he was there. In fact, one of the things he wants out of Elon Musk is to remove Tucker Carlson from the platform because he thinks that Tucker Carlson is shocking, isn't it? Yeah, the ADL is not the ADL anymore, and it's sad. It's actually horrible because there is anti-Semitism out there. But now whenever ADL steps up and says, hey, we see anti-Semitism, my initial instinct is it's probably not. It's probably just something conservative that Jonathan Greenblatt doesn't like. And that's a shame because when you cry wolf too many times for political partisan purposes, you sort of lose the whole plot, which is actually a noble one, to root out real anti-Semitism, not Tucker Carlson's monologue. 6:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Hey, look, it's Jamie Whitten. She's in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, Joe Biden sends depleted uranium munitions and cluster bombs to Ukraine. He must want a Nobel Peace Prize like Obama. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Just wait till you hear the latest out of Eric Adams. This is the mayor of New York City. You know, he's dealing with a crisis there, Mercedes, because there's New York is a sanctuary city, isn't it?
It is.
Last
yes,
I checked,
that's
yeah.
right.
Well, that sanctuary city is being overrun, he says, by illegal immigrants who are demanding city services, demanding to put their children in the public schools, demanding to be housed. It's 20,000, by the way, last I checked. In fact, I think New York has less than 20,000. It was a total of 25,000 that Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, has sent to various cities. I believe maybe New York got, 14,000 of them.
Yeah, well, I remember this. This is on top of 100,000 homelessness in the city.
Yeah.
This is on top of the fact that they're spending billions of dollars of resources both on housing and health for the illegal immigrants that are going into these neighborhoods. I got to tell you, there is a huge crisis, and it's been Mayor Eric Adams who has gone to the federal to the federal government and pleaded for asking for additional resources.
Right.
Guess what? They're the ones that caused the problem.
Let's be clear. All he's pleading for is money. He's not saying fix the border. He's not saying secure the border. He's not saying, have some sort of level of criteria in terms of who you're letting in this country and only allow people who can legally enter. He's not saying that. He's just saying, give me the money, which he got. He got something like $100 million from the federal government of money that was earmarked for border cities. Cities that have hundreds of thousands, millions of illegal immigrants clouding their systems. He's got, 15,000 at most? Mm-hmm. So, and of course, Biden gave him the money instead of Arizona or Texas. So here's Mayor Adams at a town hall.
Let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted.
Go to El Paso, Mayor New York, and Mayor Adams of New York. And again, he's telling the people of New York that this is going to destroy our city and there's no way to end it. Well, there is a way to end it, but he won't tell the truth about how this all began. It's his president. It's his party. This is exactly what his party voted for. It's what he voted for when he supported sanctuary status.
I mean, to Eric Adams' credit, he's literally now admitting that this issue is going to destroy New York City. I mean, that's a big admission coming from a Democrat. It's not like Governor Hochul, who's the New York governor, who's been a lot more willing to be a cheerleader for the Biden administration. I think that there is definitely a sense of, he's placing the blame on Governor Greg Abbott, but it's outrageous that why should Texas be the state to bear the brunt of a failed border policy?
Right. And here's the actual data. This is from Greg Abbott in Texas. He put this out 2 days ago. Texas has bused over 35,000 migrants to sanctuary cities across the country. 11,000 have come to D.C., 13,000 to New York, 6,700 to Chicago, 2,600 to Philadelphia, 1,000 to Denver, and about 500 to L.A. That's it. So you want to blame Greg Abbott for this. He just said he's got 10,000 a month coming into New York. Greg Abbott's only sent 13,000 total to New York.
Right.
That's a straw man. The problem is not the governor busing people up. The problem is the president and the policies of Eric Adams' party.
And the problem is, yes, you're right, that they're welcoming, that this sanctuary city mentality, sorry, you signed up for this, so you got to face the consequences.
That's right. Just because Eric Adams is actually truthfully saying this is a crisis doesn't mean I don't think he deserves much more credit than just that, because his only solution is to give me more money. He wants money from the taxpayers of Oklahoma. He wants money from the taxpayers of Wyoming and Montana. Hell, he wants money from the taxpayers of Texas, who are dealing with this 100-fold. All he wants is federal money. He doesn't want to solve the problem. It's 6:23. All right, now I want to remind you that Michael Waltz, congressman from Florida, former Army Ranger, he's going to be joining us coming up at 7:35, because we now, the United States is committed to providing depleted uranium tank ammunition to Ukraine as part of a $175 million
I don't mean to laugh,
aid
but
package.
it was like a riddle. Totally.
Yeah,
Said it.
it's depleted uranium tank ammunition.
It's not a laughing matter.
It's not. The rounds could help destroy Russian tanks as part of a new military aid package for Ukraine. Well, this answers a lot of people who have been saying, listen, if we're going to supply these guys to fight the Russians, let's not do it halfway. Let's just give them everything that they need. And the argument we'll hear from Michael Waltz if he stands with this argument, but I think we heard it articulated well in the Republican debate stage last month, which was, listen, right now, because Ukraine isn't NATO, we don't have to commit American troops. So let's stop this thing now and do whatever we can to help support Ukraine in stopping this thing now, because the next country Russia has its sights on, then we will have to commit American troops because it's NATO. And this, no matter what side you're on, this is certainly a viable and important conversation that Republicans should have.
Yeah, but Republicans are look, this is one of the most contentious debates happening within the Republican Party right now.
Yep.
Where you're seeing many Republicans saying that this is a blank check spending, in terms of the fact that billions of dollars are being spent and given to Ukraine. We just heard that Secretary Blinken, they're sending $1 billion more in aid. This includes for financial and humanitarian aid as well as the military aid. And people are saying, wait a second, what about America?
Yeah.
You see our cities, crime spiraling, and we're seeing so many huge problems, Larry, here in the U.S.
100%.
So
and
I don't think people want to be involved in this war. There's a weariness with this war. And
the way it's been led and the way it's been communicated has been god-awful. And the fact that even if you ask a question challenging it, you're suddenly, part of Putin's propaganda machine, that's bull. That's not how we debate things. So I'm looking forward to our conversation with Congressman Waltz. That's coming up at 7:35.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
Now,
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:36 on O'Connor and Company, and we're chugging along here. I keep saying chugging along because we're chugging along, as this is a fast-paced program this morning, considering the ton of information we've got to digest for you and regurgitate. Boy, that sounded gross. 7:05, Deborah Tisler is running for Fairfax County School Board. 7:35, Mike Waltz, congressman from Florida. We'll talk specifically about that uranium-depleted tank ammunition, the Ukraine package. Are they going to have a standalone bill where every member of Congress can vote yay or nay on funding Ukraine without it being tied to hurricane relief or something? Stuff like that. We'll talk to Congressman Waltz about it. 8:05, we'll explore the sanctity of Yacht Rock, the beautiful floating island that is Yacht Rock. If you don't know what we're talking about, you'll like it. We'll talk to Philly Ocean from Yachtly Crew. And then at 8:35, Chef Andrew Gruel, and it's me, Larry O'Connor, with Mercedes Schlapp. Now, let's talk about Chef Gruel. California is doing yet another maniacal move to punish small businesses, and Chef Gruel is having none of it. Celebrity chef Andrew Gruel now, this according to the write-up at the Washington Examiner, is blasting new legislation aimed at, they say, to protect employees from violence at their job sites. Because, that's a growing plague, is violence at the job site for employees. The only violence that employees have to deal with at job sites is because the local DAs and the police departments have been in a position to not actually prosecute crimes. If you work at a CVS right now, that's a violent workplace because these DAs just let someone come in and take $1,000 worth of goods off of the shelves and you don't touch them. It's dystopian, Mercedes. That's where there's violence.
Is it violent when you and I start like arguing with each
That
other?
too.
Is that
This
like
is
a violent workplace?
O'Connor and Company is a violent workplace. All right, so here's what they're saying. Listen to this now. This is the future. The Democrats love Gavin Newsom.
This is the future.
This is the future of this country if we don't stop these policies that the Democrats have embraced in California. You ask any Democrat, where in this country right now do your policies get implemented without any opposition and it's working? And they'll say, well, California. California is a one-party rule state, and they're able to do whatever they want. So listen to this. This law would punish businesses for trying to stop a crime in progress. Instead
That's
of
crazy.
Thank you.
That's crazy.
Instead,
what do you do? You just sit back and you're say, "Here, take a ham sandwich. Good luck. See you later."
It's the government's job is to prosecute criminals. The government's job is to keep people and businesses safe within the confines of law and order. All right. And they're falling down on that job in California. They refuse to do that job. So individual owners of their businesses, they're stepping up and they're employing security systems. They're hiring armed security guards. And they're saying, listen, if the cops aren't going to stop the crime, we're at least going to protect our investment and protect our insurance premiums. So if you see a crime in progress, you, my security guard, you're to stop it. And the California legislature would make that illegal. And they're doing it under the guise of protecting workers.
Yeah, which is insane.
Of course it is.
Sense. But then here's the thing. Like, this is why you look at California and all these businesses are exiting that state, going into red states like Texas and Florida, because there's no way they're basically, weakening these business owners from being able to protect themselves.
Yep.
And it's dangerous. And, this all goes back to the same thing, which is how do you take, guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens? That's a piece of this as well.
The state of California in its various jurisdictions and statewide out of Sacramento have basically said, we're not going to enforce the law. People can steal up to, I believe the law currently is shoplifting from a store or any kind of theft. From an individual or from a business up to just under $1,000 will be treated as a misdemeanor.
Yeah, they're going to find. Yeah,
that's the current law right now.
Yeah,
so criminals are not stupid. They know that, and they know the police aren't going to bust their tail right now in prosecuting misdemeanors. And even if they do get arrested, they know that the DAs in San Francisco and LA and in other jurisdictions are not going to prosecute these crimes because it's a misdemeanor. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the money, and it's not worth the jail space. Even if you're prosecuted on a misdemeanor,
it's the most backward piece of legislation where it's like, okay, you have to develop this workplace violence prevention plan, but you, an employee, you're prevented from stopping a criminal. It makes no sense.
So in other words, the criminals are allowed to do whatever they want. They're allowed to assault you. They're allowed to take your goods. They're allowed to steal from you. We will do nothing. But if you do something to prevent it, you will be fined, and we will take your business away from you. That's what's happening in California. And this is you ask any Democrat in Congress right now, do you agree with this? And the majority of them will say, well, yeah.
Yeah, well, you've got the California Chamber of Commerce, the California Retailers Association, California Grocers Association. They're fighting this measure, calling it unfeasible for employees. I just think this is why you're seeing so many of these big retail stores leaving California.
100%. They're leaving California. They're shutting down in the major cities.
It is. It's not feasible, and it's just all you keep seeing is upward trends in crime and homelessness in cities like San Francisco and just overall in that state. It's just not sustainable.
Chef Gruhl represents in his own way, unofficially, many small business owners and entrepreneurs. He'll join us at 8:35 to talk about this insanity. And real fast, just as a former Californian, California Chamber of Commerce is rallying behind business owners. You know what? The California Chamber of Commerce has embraced lawlessness on our immigration system for decades. They loved looking away while our immigration laws weren't enforced, which created this climate of lawlessness because they loved exploiting people for cheap labor. So I would love for them to get on board across the board on protecting law and order. It's not just, they can't just pick and choose. Otherwise, they'd have a lot more credibility on this. It's thank you. Appreciate. See, we
agree.
Boy, the march toward masking us is really heating up. I speculated yesterday, and I believe I'm right about this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have speculated openly. I speculated that this. Everyone said, "Oh, it's because they're trying to, get things ready for a lockdown for the 2024 presidential election." That could be true, but I think that this is really first and foremost about the Virginia election. They're panicked about Virginia right now, Mercedes. They're panicked about Governor Youngkin. They're panicked about how popular he is, and they're panicked that he's put together this initiative to secure Republican votes in Virginia by getting people registered and getting them out to vote early and load that up so that the Democrats don't have that advantage like they've had in the past. You saw Joe Biden just force the DNC to infuse, I think, upwards to $2 million in Virginia. Right now, the tide is turning in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and they need to do something. So I think a lot of this, especially because it's local here in the D.C. area, the push for masking, the push for a whole bunch of lockdown restrictions have to do with this November here in this area.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're seeing this nationwide movement pushing for masking in some of the school districts. I know you talked about in Montgomery County. They were also seeing that in Texas and the school districts down there. But what I've noticed is that there are more and more Americans standing up and saying we will not comply, especially when you're looking at studies that show that masks are, in essence, not effective. And then you had Dr. Anthony Fauci basically come out and say, well, they could work in an individual place, in an individual space, but not in a large public
Which makes
group.
makes 100% no sense. If it works on an individual basis, then by definition it would work for a large group, because if a large group is made up of individuals. So yesterday we told you Whoopi Goldberg didn't show up on day one of The View because she has COVID. So yesterday she zoomed in from home. Now she is it's not like there's a camera crew there. This is obviously a webcam. She is alone in her relatively cluttered New York apartment. She's talking on Zoom to the gals at the View table, and I kid you not, she's wearing a mask.
I have COVID. I just have COVID. I'm still testing positive, apparently. I have to have a clear test before I can come back. So, I can't wait to get back and hang out. But until then, it's me and my mask, and I'm sort of confined to my room.
She's confined to her room. Again, I want to just point out, she is 100% alone in her room, talking on Zoom on a camera, and she was wearing a mask.
Well, she
alone.
Briefly wears the mask, then she pulls down her mask at one point. That's the thing. That's the moment. So she can speak to the camera. She takes down her mask.
Right. By the way, by yanking it down and pulling it across her chin and her face and, using her head, she's now contaminated herself and the rest of her face.
She contaminated the camera, the Zoom. That's what she did.
And the Zoom, and we're all going to die.
And I'm sure these are the super duper boosted people.
Of course they are. It's only the boosted people.
I'm getting COVID.
We just talked to Dr. Malone about this yesterday, and he said, it looks like if you get, the data shows that the more boosted you are, the more vulnerable and susceptible you are to catching the virus. It's like the opposite of an inoculation.
It's the opposite.
All right. As we have this obvious march toward forcing your children into masks and eventually you into masks, I want you to remember this. We played for this back in June. Congressman Kevin Kiley, a freshman in California, speaking with the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Becerra, specifically about children wearing masks. Listen to this exchange. Listen to the congressman and listen to the answers from the Biden administration.
Mr. Secretary, did forcing 2-year-olds to wear masks save lives?
Do what now?
Did forcing 2-year-olds to wear masks save lives?
Making sure people wore masks when it was appropriate was essential to make sure that we were able to get out of this pandemic.
Sure, but that wasn't my question. Could you answer the question that I asked?
Which is?
Did forcing 2-year-olds to wear masks save lives?
And who did the forcing?
Well, your department, or the Head Start, which is under your department, had a mask mandate until late last year for 2-year-olds and above, even outdoors. So can you point to any public health benefit of that policy?
Right. We never forced anyone to do anything because we don't have the jurisdiction or authority to do that. What we did was provide guidance on what would be the
Mr. Secretary, did Head Start have a mask mandate?
We provide a mask mandate, a requirement for jurisdictions that wish to receive money to provide particular services.
So Head Start did have a mask mandate for kids, yes?
We had a mask mandate for for agencies that wish to get federal dollars.
So that's a yes.
by
So
services.
can you point to any benefit,
not a yes to
any
your
public
question.
health benefit from that policy, whether it was recommended or enforced or forced, of requiring young children to wear masks?
Did families benefit from the policy of using all protection, all precautions to avoid?
No, I'm not asking you to
contracting COVID?
rephrase my
Yes.
question as some abstract question that you'd rather answer. I'm asking that you, as the person who's the Secretary of Health and Human Services, right now, can you point to any evidence that there was a public health benefit to forcing young children to wear masks?
Well, the fact that today we are not losing lives the way we lost them when we first got into this pandemic.
And you think that's
is a
because we
clear
forced
sign.
2-year-olds to wear masks?
That's your interpretation. What I'm saying to you is that
All right, so you get where this is going. And so the bottom line is it should be very easy for the Secretary of Health and Human Services saying, yes, having a 2-year-old wear a mask saves lives. But he can't. He won't. He refuses to answer that. He dances around it. So when your principal at your kid's school says that the kindergartners have to put masks on because 2 kids tested positive for COVID, just treat them like a student and you're the teacher and say, show your work. Show your work.
Evidence. Yes.
Show your. If you can
effective?
prove to me that my child having to wear a mask in school will save lives and stop the spread of the virus, then I'll be happy to do it.
Yeah.
You're fine saying that because they can't show it. Otherwise, you would have just heard an affirmative answer from Becerra.
Just think about how many millions of Americans, like, we were forced to wear a mask. There was those individuals with, where there was a vaccine mandates. It's the amount of psychological stress that they caused on our children and on many adults is really it's just outrageous.
And forget about asking for an apology because they were wrong. They refused to admit they were wrong, and now they want to do it again.
Yeah, it's like lockdown 2.0. But at least good news is Whoopi's locked down with the mask on. That's the good news.
There is one fringe benefit.
There
so maybe
is,
I
just
should
keep her in her room
cool
locked
my
down.
heels
I
a
think
little
that's
bit.
a great idea. She should write a memoir or something.
It's 6:54.